Hello, everyone. My name's Jason White. This is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I'm going to be talking about my most recent reads. To all the people who like to follow me for what I'm predominantly known for on YouTube here or on booktube is, the horror books. There's very little horror still. I do plan on getting back to the horror, but my interests have been going to other places, and there's a lot of nonfiction in this reading update, but there is some horror. So I'm going to be discussing what I've DNF'd, what I've read, and what I am currently reading. And so let's just get into it. So I'm going to start off with the DNF'd books that I stopped reading for whatever reason. And first one up is Lives of the Stoics by Ryan Holiday. If you remember from my last recent reads video, I read a lot of Ryan Holiday books, and I stopped at this one because I was listening to the audiobook, and Ryan Holiday reads, I think he's read every one of, narrated every one of his books that's published. I could be wrong on that. There may be one or two that he didn't narrate, but he narrates this one, and I find him to be a very good narrator, honestly, but this one, it kind of ruined it for me because he gets very passionate about these historical Stoic figures. And it almost comes across like one of his motivational videos where he gets very excited and he starts speaking kind of quickly and in that inspirational voice that, like a lot of, I don't know what you call it, but there's a lot of energy in his voice, and he needs to kind of, I felt he needed to tone it down just a little bit for Lives of the Stoics because it's not a video, it's an audiobook. And also, the content itself was just kind of dry. I plan on returning to it, but I'm hoping to actually just read it with my eyes next time I visit this book. I also put down Mastery by Robert Greene. It's not that I wasn't enjoying this book, it's just that it's very long, and I honestly don't know what to say. There was no reason for me to put it down. It's very interesting. The basic concept of this book is just focusing on one thing to become successful at it, and not letting your attention wander into many different things, which is what my brain always wants to do. I'm always finding all these little projects that I want to do, and I just, it's best not to do that. But Mastery by Robert Greene, he brings together a lot of historical figures and tells their stories on how they pretty much accomplish that. It goes into much more detail than just focusing on one thing to become successful. I think maybe it's just that I'm not really in that headspace right now for that kind of talk. Maybe that's why I put it down. But it is a good book. Robert Greene, from my understanding, is a bit of a can't speak today. Controversial writer in some regards. So take that for what you will. I didn't hate it, but it just wasn't capturing my attention the way it could have if I were to finish it, if that makes any sense. I was listening to the audiobook again. It was narrated just fine. I think that one reason why I stopped is because it was like 16, 17 hours. It was just so long for the message it was trying to give. All right, next up, another book that I didn't stop reading for any reason other than I wanted to move on to other things, and that's A Guide to the Good Life by William B. Irvine. This is another book on Stoicism. I plan on going back to it as soon as I guess I'm in the mood. The first chapter I listened to was really good. And last up on my DNFs is a horror book. And it's The Drivein by Joe R. Lansdale. I know. I DNF'd a Joe R. Lansdale book. Again, there's nothing wrong with this book. In fact, I know I would have loved it so much more even 5 years ago. But I'm just not in the right headspace right now for a book like this. I need to be in the right headspace for it, so I thought I'd save it for later. But it's a very basic type of story. It was written in the 80s, I believe. It's about a drive-in, as the title suggests, where the characters are all at the drive-in when this comet comes and spews this weird little gas that does terrible things to people, and now they're all trapped in the drive-in. It's a pretty funny story, but it's also very gory in parts, and like I said, it just wasn't the right fit at the right time for me. I will definitely be returning to it, though, once I'm in the mood for something like that. Alright, so let's move on to what I've read recently since my last update. I read, as I was talking about in my spring TBR, I actually tackled a couple of those books. And the first one I read was Alien Phalanx by Scott Sigler. This is a very interesting book. I'm going to tell you right now that when you read the description, it's not what the description makes it out to be. I'm gonna leave it at that. But it is a good book. It feels like an alien story, and when I started this book, I wasn't enjoying myself, to be honest with you. I didn't. It's almost like my brain just didn't want to like it. It wanted to label it as garbage. And not that there's anything wrong with reading, trashy sort of stuff. I'm all for reading the trashy stuff. It's just like, the mood I've been in lately. But it grew on me really quickly. I don't even know where or why it grew on me. I just suddenly was really into the story, and it pulled me in, and I absolutely loved it by the end. So I highly recommend, if you're into aliens at all, the movies, you need to check out this book. It's got a really interesting ending, and it's it's not really a slow start. It's not a slow start at all. It's just maybe you might have the same issue as me, thinking that it's not going to be what you expected or whatever. It might not be what you expect, but it's going to be a lot of fun regardless. And I think if you're into that type of, if you're into the alien movies, I think you'll benefit from reading this book. I also read The Immaculate Void by Brian Hodge. This is a piece of cosmic horror. And I enjoyed this story. Not as much as Alien Phalanx, though, which is strange. This story is very strange, as, cosmic horror tends to be. And to be honest with you, thinking about it now, I'm kind of wishing I wrote some notes on it because I don't remember it very much. So I think I like Brian Hodge's short stories better, but that's not to insult this book by any means. It was a fun read while I was there. I do remember what it's about, the basics though. This guy's sister goes missing, and his sister was almost a victim of a serial killer back when she was a kid, and this, along with an ex-boyfriend of hers, who's a very strange guy, to say the least, all kind of mixes together by the end, and it's a very strange story. I think you would benefit from. I don't think this is available as an ebook or a print book anymore, but it is available on Audible. I would recommend checking it out, especially if you're into cosmic horror and you want something. If you haven't heard of it, you definitely do well with checking it out. Moving on to more of the Stoicism and some Buddhism, I read A Slap in the Face by William B. Irvine. This book is it's all about insults and where insults come from, why we insult each other, and how to sort of overcome the sting of insulting. This book goes very deep into the insulting. You can tell that the author, William B. Irvine, which is another book of his I had in my DNF. But he knows insults very well. He did his research very well. There's a lot of psychology in here. And of course it brings a sort of Stoicism philosophy into the whole thing. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed reading it. And you learn a few things about it, about human nature and why we act the way we do. Next up, I read Fear by Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if it's Tick or Thick. I know that his students called him Tai, which is translated Tai as teacher. He was a Buddhist monk, and I believe he wrote over 100 books, which is a lot. But Fear basically is Thich Nhat Hanh's How to Overcome Fear, basically. And in this book, Thich Nhat Hanh, just like the insult book, A Slap in the Face, Thich Nhat Hanh goes through all the various forms of fear and why we feel fear and how to how to overcome it. And as with all Buddhism and most, I would say, more authentic forms of meditation, Thich Nhat Hanh teaches you to not run away from fear, to not hide from it, or any bad emotion whatsoever, but to face it silently and gently, and to observe it, and to in a sense to embrace it. This book goes through some meditations, and it also goes through some serious Buddhist Dharma talk, which is fine by me. I recommend it if you're interested in Buddhism and how to maybe conquer your own fear, and you would not, even if you have no interest in Buddhism, but you want to learn how to cope with negative feelings, you would benefit yourself from reading this book. I also read the opposite here, Happiness by Thich Nhat Hanh. This book goes through how to be happy, basically, and it honestly, it's almost a parallel. You could do what I did and read these two together, the fear and happiness. He has another book called Anger, and I want to read that too, because I bet you there's a lot of similarities between these three. The similarities being how to face the negative emotions, and this one is how to face the negative emotions in order to obtain happiness overall. Because his philosophy and Buddhism philosophy is that if you are able to make friends with the darker side of your nature, that's how I'm wording it. They wouldn't word it that way, but what I mean is, if you make friends with your mind, you make friends with the darker side of your emotions, then they tend to go away. There's actually a video of Thich Nhat Hanh talking, and the title is If You Know How to Suffer, You Suffer Less. So that's kind of Thich Nhat Hanh's message in probably most of his books. I also read How to Meditate by Pema Chodron. She's another Buddhist nun, and her words are like balm to the soul. She's a Western Buddhist nun. She was born in America, and I think she's one of the first, if not the first, women to become a Buddhist nun. And this book is pretty much exactly what I've been talking about with the Thich Nhat Hanh books, except she has her own approach. It's her sort of instruction on how to meditate, and she pretty much teaches the same thing: to not run from your emotions, but to look at them. And the point is to look at them and observe them and become friends with them as gently as possible. Don't beat yourself up when you're meditating, for example. It's not just calming the mind and creating absolute silence. You breathe in, you focus on your breath, you breathe out, focus on that, and then whatever thoughts come up, you pay attention, or you observe it for a while, and then you say come back, or stay, or whatever brings you back into the meditative state, which is the silence. And when bad emotions come, because they will, don't hide from it, don't run, don't go to all your vices that you might do, like drinking or smoking or buying a whole bunch of stuff you don't need. Instead, focus on that emotion silently. And that's pretty much what this book is about, but she goes into various different techniques and whatnot, and it's very it's enlightening, honestly. And the next book is also related, in The Places That Scare You, also by Pema Chodron. This one kind of ties up everything I've been talking about with all this Buddhism stuff, is that there's a lot of stuff that scare us. We tend to run from it, and it's not healthy to run from it, because when you run and hide from what is bothering you, it's not going to go away. It's if anything, it's going to get stronger. All right. So, what am I currently reading? I'm still reading this because these stories are they're kind of dark, honestly. I would really enjoy them. But I'm just not in the right headspace, but I haven't DNF'd it because I want to finish it, and because the author was kind enough to send me a signed copy here. But I've been in a very non-horror headspace lately. But these stories are very good. I'm at like 60% of these stories, and I haven't hated any story yet. Some of the stories have kind of disturbed me, and some of them have entertained me, very very much so. I'm really enjoying this book. I'm just struggling to get through it because I'm not in the mood for the type of fiction, like the darkness, I guess you could say. So I recommend this collection. It's, if I haven't said the title yet, it's Fit for Consumption by Steve Berman, and it's a wonderful collection. I'm also listening to The Heart of Buddha's Teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh. This is, if you're interested in Buddhism at all, he goes through pretty much all the basics of Buddhism, and he gives a fairly detailed explanation of what they are and what they're for and how to sort of practice Buddhism. It's pretty dense, honestly, and I kind of struggle sometimes with it, but it's not entertaining whatsoever, but it is, it's an education. I don't know what started me on this sort of Buddhism trip, I think, or journey, I should say. I think it came from Stoicism, my journey into Stoicism. Kind of naturally, for me anyway, naturally led to all this Buddhist stuff. I'm just a very generally curious person, but I think that this stuff is helping me spiritually in a major way. Just last night, I started reading Babylon Berlin by Volker Kutscher, and I just read the first chapter before going to bed, and I really enjoyed what I read so far, so I'm probably going to continue reading that. So that is all. That's all that I've been reading recently. I hope that I didn't bore your socks off with all the nonfiction, the spiritual, and Stoicism stuff. Thank you for watching, and if you liked what you saw here, please hit the like button. That helps my channel out a lot. And if you like hearing about horror books, science fiction, fantasy, and apparently some Buddhist Stoicism type stuff, then hit the subscribe button. And if you liked this video, there's more. I like doing top 10 lists, so check those videos out right there. Thank you. Keep being creative, and keep being safe, and I'll see you guys in the next bookish video.